This is Michael Coffey. I'm the pastor of First English Lutheran Church in Austin, Texas, and this is another Tiny Desk sermon, a first look at the text for this coming Sunday, and an impromptu reflection on them. This Sunday will be November 12th, and it will be lectionary 32, or proper 27a. The gospel reading for this Sunday comes from Matthew 25, and it's often called the parable of the 10 bridesmaids. I want to read this. I also want to read a little bit of the Old Testament reading from Amos. Jesus is speaking. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. But the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a shout, "Look, here's the bridegroom. Come out to meet him." Then all those bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise replied, "No, there will not be enough for you and for us. You had better go to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." And while they went to buy it, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went with him into the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the other bridesmaids came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I do not know you. Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." Well, this is one of those parables, again, that has a lot of cultural context that's hard to understand today, and it has kind of like unsure how we should interpret each part of the parable. I just want to say about the context, there's this understanding that the bridegroom would come and there'd be a procession of these bridesmaids, and they would need their lamps to do so at night. He was going to get the bride to bring her to his home, and clearly if they didn't have enough oil in their lamps, they couldn't go through the procession in the dark. And that's why what the parable is saying up front is to be prepared. You don't know when the bridegroom's going to get here, and your oil lamp will need to be replenished somehow and sometime. So have enough oil ready, because you don't know when it's going to happen. Now, these parables, you can start to think about, is this some kind of weird future-looking, waiting for the return of Christ, and some kind of left behind scenario? We need to kind of put all of that kind of uniquely American interpretation of these things aside, and really hear what the text is getting at, which is we people of faith live now anticipating the future fulfillment of God's kingdom. How do we live now? How do we live in this waiting time, when now we live in things like what happened yesterday in Texas, about an hour's drive from me, the gunning down of many, many people at the church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. How do we live now when our political lives seem to be fracturing? And how do we live now when people who face all kinds of discrimination and suffering seem to be getting worse and not better based on the policies and the actions of people in power? How do we live now? How do we wait? And the parable is saying, replenish. Stock up on what gives you light. Stock up on oil. And I don't think you can go through the parable and make everything an allegory, but when I think about this need to replenish ourselves now, so that we can wait for what is to come, then we have to think about stocking up on faith, stocking up on hope, and stocking up on love. Because we run out of any of those, and our lamps go out. And I want to touch on what we might think about this coming vision of the kingdom coming, and that comes from Amos, the text for Amos. I'm going to read just part of it. It begins with the part about Amos as a prophet, and he's strongly criticizing the religious people of his day for having a lot of great worship services and paying no attention to injustice. I despise your festivals. This is Amos 5. And I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. This is God speaking, not Amos. Even though you offer me your burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. And the offerings of well-being of your fatted animals, I will not look upon them. Take away from me the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the melody of your harps. But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. So this world of justice and righteousness is what we wait for. And in the meantime, we are to work for those to flow. Maybe there are things damming up the flow of righteousness and justice, and we need to break apart those dams to let God's justice and righteousness flow. So we're called to many big things, and in order to live those out, we have to keep replenishing ourselves and replenishing one another. The parable sounds a little bit selfish about not sharing your oil. I think that has something to do with the fact that they were wise and they knew that everyone would run out if they didn't take care of their own oil first. Don't get stuck in that too much. But what do you need to be replenished today in the midst of all these difficult things? I hope that being part of the church is a part of how we can be replenished together. We can be replenished in faith and in hope, and especially in love, because what else is it that gives us light for the lamps we have to carry in this dark world but the love of God? May you know that, and may we all know peace today.